Hi, this is Dr. Thomas Rocco on CBD Health Podcast. Today, I want to talk about the changes in Rhode Island in the last couple of years in terms of CBD retailing, as well as marijuana, how it's being used. In the last decade and beyond, we've had medical marijuana use. In 2022, now we have approved for recreational use. So stay tuned, listen up, and we'll get you up to date. Hi, this is Dr. Thomas Rocco from CBD Health Podcast. Today, I want to talk about the changes that are happening in the hemp program in Rhode Island. In 2022, there was not only bills written to pass and legalize recreational marijuana, but it was passed in May of 2022 by the General Assembly of Rhode Island and signed by Governor Dan McKee. This not only impacts, obviously, now legal recreational use, but also impacts medical marijuana as well. Also, that's happened is in 2021, people that sell CBD now need a retail license through the Office of Cannabis Regulation. Prior to all this, marijuana and CBD was regulated by Department of Business Regulation. Regulation has been a little bit more stricter. Regulation has been more defined. And not only was everything under the Department of Business Regulations, now they have an office specifically for the hemp program that's called the Office of Cannabis Regulation. So this legalization to allow cannabis use for people and consumers over 21 will start in December 2022. A quick summary of the personal allowances when this goes into effect. Adults 21 and older can possess or purchase up to 1 ounce of cannabis. You can possess up to 10 ounces of cannabis in your home privately. You also can possess up to 5 grams of cannabis concentrate. Now, there was some confusion. Some of the public thought that you can sell cannabis, but you cannot sell cannabis. You can transfer up to 1 ounce of cannabis to another adult. But when you read the legislation, you cannot sell cannabis. Now, with the new legislation for recreational marijuana, anyone is allowed to cultivate up to 3 mature and immature marijuana plants. So this changes how some consumers will get their marijuana. It's not necessary to get a medical marijuana card as you needed in Rhode Island for the last decade plus. So now in December, anyone's allowed to go into a dispensary over 21 and buy up to 1 ounce of cannabis. Now, one thing I don't understand is in the legislation, they're approving this and it's signed for December 2022, yet they still want to have a regulatory structure that hasn't been formed with people. They talked about a Cannabis Control Commission and a Cannabis Advisory Board. And it's 3 people will be appointed for the commission and 11 for the board. However, they're starting this in December, and yet these 2 different types of boards have not been appointed people. I would think this should have been done first before we got into actually allowing recreational use and starting a type of program to allow with recreational marijuana use. but we'll see what happens. The one thing I do know is they were going to start this in December, and in April 1st, 2023, there will be a revisit to see if there's any changes that are necessary, either minor or drastic. So at least they have a date set to look at how the program is forming, how it's going, what's the safety problems, what's the not safety problems, to see if there's anything that needs to be amended to this new bill that's legalizing recreational use for adults 21 and older in Rhode Island. How this impacts medical marijuana. Now, some of the quick points about medical marijuana. With recreational, you're allowed 1 ounce with you at all times by possession. But with medical, you're allowed up to 2.5 ounces of cannabis with you at any time for possession. The other difference is if you go into a dispensary, if you have a medical marijuana card, the tax will be 11%, as it always has been. But with coming into a dispensary without a license, the tax will be more, it will be 20%. And that 20% is a 10% retail excise tax, a 3% local sales tax, in addition to the normal sales tax rate of 7%. The other thing how it affects medical marijuana patients is with this new program, the legislation now has eliminated all fees for medical cannabis patients and caregivers and purchasers in terms of that fee of $50 to $100, and sometimes only $25 for those patients that are on disability. So getting a license medically requires the application, a signature by a physician in Rhode Island or a nurse practitioner that confirms one of the 14 qualifying medical problems for medical marijuana. But now there's no need for a fee for any of the medical marijuana fees with the state of Rhode Island, a purchaser fee or a caregiver fee. One of the things I really do think that is very important is with the recreational use starting in December, Rhode Island does take medical marijuana cards with other states. And like Maine, Rhode Island has reciprocity with other cards, allowing them to come in to get medical marijuana and also be sold by the lower sales tax. But the one thing that has been stated, and something that's been a problem in the past, is patients with out-of-state medical marijuana cards now also need a valid ID demonstrating they're from that same state. And one of the problems we had in the past in Rhode Island is there is a website where you could easily get a California marijuana card, not showing you're from California, not being in California. It was done online very cheaply, and it would be sent to your address with your name saying that you need medical marijuana for certain criteria without any need to show that you're from California. And there was many patients having these cards. These cards bother me because it's not that it's an issue with getting marijuana in the dispensary. You can also just go to Massachusetts where it's legal if you really need it recreationally. But the problem with a card like that, when you're getting it out of state and you're not from that state, you get no protection from it if there's an issue. So just say there was an issue with marijuana for whatever reason, if it's employment while driving, and you show you have a card from California, yet you're not from California, that gives you no protection. All it does is maybe allows you to get into a dispensary illegally and obtain marijuana, but there's no protection. you need that civil protection. And that's why I was very concerned with people that I knew, people that I didn't know that were getting these cards from out of the state. In terms of the now recreational use starting in December, stated in the legislation, there's a lot of civil protections that you would get with a medical marijuana in the past in Rhode Island. And that is a good thing. However, I have to see it first. So I normally tell my patients or people that call me is, if you qualify for a card, get a card. It does give you those civil protections. In the legislation now, you will have those civil protections without a license, but I'd have to see it first to believe it. Now, when we talk about civil protections, some of the highlights are like if you use cannabis, it doesn't disqualify you from any needed medical procedure, including an organ transplant or tissue transplant. As I really like the medical marijuana card for people that are employed, it also states for people using recreationally that an employer cannot be fired or taken any disciplinary action against an employee solely for the use of prior private lawful use of cannabis outside of their workplace. So with a medical marijuana card in the past, I felt that was very important. If you're going to use it medically, the card protects you at your workplace. Another highlight is with the new legislation with recreational use of marijuana, absent evidence that a person's actions have created a danger for a child, the use of cannabis cannot be the basis of denying parental rights. So those are the three things I felt with a medical marijuana card protected you. It's stated now recreationally, it's also a protection. Again, I'd like to see it first before I believe it. If you qualify medically, it's worth getting a medical marijuana card, even though it's easier to get it as of December 2022 to obtain marijuana recreationally. Another interesting thing is people in the past who had any criminal conviction for the possession of cannabis now can be expunged for that issue in the past. So that's a very interesting problem in the past, but now people now can be cleared of just possession of cannabis who had an issue with that. I actually spoke to a patient recently, just this week, who was in jail for about 50 to 55 days just for possession. And now that's should be expunged after this is passed, starting in December 2022. So the things that I think are helpful here is now with recreational use, you have to be 21. You can have possession of 1 ounce. You cannot sell marijuana. You can grow up to 3 mature and immature plants. There's a smaller amount with a concentrate of cannabis. There are now new civil protections with cannabis in Rhode Island. The other good thing is now we have an office of cannabis regulation, which we did not have in the past. And it does affect the medical marijuana program because now there's no more fees involved with getting a license or caregivers or purchasers. The sales tax, again, the same for medical use of marijuana at 11%, but now if you go in without a medical marijuana card, it is 20%. So there's been a lot of changes in Rhode Island, and now there's been changes now with CBD. If you do sell CBD orally, ingesting CBD, you also have to get a license. So there's been a lot of changes in Rhode Island the last year to 2 years. So in December 2021, the Office of Cannabis Regulation started an industrial hemp program. And this plan was for retailers that sell capsules, ingestible CBD, needed to go through a guideline of procedures to get a license to show that you're not only selling it, selling proper medications, but also doing it safely. And if there's any recall, you have a recall process. As of now, to be a Rhode Island CBD licensed retailer, you need to know your CBD companies. You need to know the packaging and the labeling requirements to ship it or sell it. You can't claim any improper marketing or advertising. You have to have the copies of certificate analysis of all your products. And there should be policies and procedures, again, for any recalls of CBD products. This was started in December 2021. I'm proud to say that Back to Basics Medical CBD, Rhode Island, Warwick, we were the first company to obtain that license. We were doing those policies and procedures already, but we showed our process, and looking at the retailers that have been approved with this license, we were the first one in February of 2022. So in the last year and a half, there's been a lot of changes. Now we have an Office of Cannabis Regulation that has now been the place where patients, doctors, consumers can now contact to look at how to use medical marijuana, where to get a card, what the regulations are, and now we are now have recreational use as of December 1st, 2022. So things are very exciting. There's been a lot of changes coming into Rhode Island. So if you have any questions, please call us at 401-678-6420. I'm Dr. Thomas Rocco. I'm a physician in Rhode Island. I also am in charge of the medical portion of Back to Basics CBD in Warwick, Rhode Island. Appreciate your time with us. Call us anytime, contact us. Our website is backtobasicsllc.com. That's www.basicsllc.com. You can contact us through email as well as also calling us at 401-678-6420. Thank you for your time. Things are changing in Rhode Island. We can keep you up to date. It's easy just calling us. You can find everything with the Office of Cannabis Regulations as well on their website with the Department of Health in Rhode Island. Thank you again.